And welcome back to GBS Morning Extra. If you're just joining us, as I mentioned earlier, today I have with me guests in studio, and we'll be discussing politics. Let me just say politics. We're looking at the BBI forum that took place in Kitui over the weekend. We are also looking at the hasty swearing in of James Nyoro, the Kiambu County Governor, the third governor of the Kiambu County. And also over the weekend, we noticed that the Deputy President William Ruto lashed out at the leaders who were in Kitui, saying that BBI forums are meant to actually bring Kenyans together and build bridges, but then you cannot do that with violence. And I don't know, but what happened in Kitui County was kind of a shocker, almost spurred violence or something of a sort, but thank God it didn't go out of control. The leaders who were being stopped from accessing the main dais were finally allowed to do that, and they got their seats. They were, however, not allowed to speak during the whole event. They were sat down there and they watched as the rest of us, me and you, and also the wananchi that attended the event. Before we start our discussion, I'd like to introduce our guest, and then we'll take a look at some of the clips and that will set the motion for our discussion this morning. You introduce yourself. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Yes, great to be here.
Karibu.
My name is Omulo Jr.
Yes.
Yes.
Karibu sana. We missed you here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Rokin Okot.
Karibu sana. You gentlemen did not identify yourself, like where you come from, what you do.
Okay, on my introduction part, I think people know me. I'm the National Deputy Secretary General of MDF.
Yes.
And as you announced the other day, I've been a student. I just completed my master's in USIU. That is all about me.
Sawa, karibu sana.
I'm the National Youth Leader of ANC Party, the only party that has been on the defense side of wananchi. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwe. We'll come to that in a bit. But then, before we start our discussion this time, I'd like us to look at a footage and listen in to a comment by the Deputy President William Ruto on what ensued in Kitui over the weekend.
Nataka niwaulize viongozi hawa wengine wote, tuwache makelele na fujo na ubabe na mambo hiyo ambayo yanaturudisha nyuma. Kama ni mjadala tunafanya, tuweke heshima, tuweke ungwana, tusikize yale yanasemekana na mtu yeyote. Umpendi, unampenda, kila mtu apewe nafasi ya kusema maoni yake. Hakuna maoni yanayozidi maoni mengine. Mjadala unaoendelea Kenya sio ya wanasiasa, sio ya viongozi, ni ya Wakenya wote. Hata mama mboga na makanga na mtu ya bodaboda wako na maoni, wapatiwe nafasi ya kutoa maoni yao.
Now, gentlemen, the Deputy President here is referring to the incident that happened in Kitui. And quite clearly, if you watched what happened in Kitui, one would want to ask, or one would want to reason like this. This is a BBI meeting, pro-BBI meeting, and someone goes in there who is anti-BBI and then tries to force his way on the dais and, of course, security roughed them up. Were they not justified to stop these leaders from, trying to access the dais and try to cause the commotion?
I think they were not justified. As leaders, I believe that that one was wrong. Even great philosophers like Hegel, the Hegelian method, the dialectic method of interpretation, he actually combined two things, the thesis and antithesis, to come up with the synthesis. That's the only way you interpret the world. But if you actually force your opponents you subdue them by force. You'll force your ideas on people, and that one may be interpreted as a way or a method that is not encompassing everybody. And that's why you are seeing the deputy president very bitter about it. But I think I have questions towards the same. If there are so many buts and what ifs in the country, why can't those people who have reservations about the process, because the process matters, why can't people who have questions about the process have, or just oppose the entire thing? You know, they are not being forced to support BBI. Why can't the deputy president and anybody else who feels like the process is rigged or bad oppose the thing? You don't have to support it by force. And that's why we should not, I think this is hypocrisy. If your members have a very radical left or opposition to the process, they should oppose. That's why even during the petition of presidential elections, actually lawyers petitioned the process of elections and electing leaders. If the process is biased, then the end results will be biased. So why not oppose? Why pretend to be supporting, but then you hold, you give us a lot of buts and ifs?
That's a very strong, Mr. Mulo Jr. Do you think that the deputy president is pretending to support the BBI?
First and foremost, I would want to say that BBI present a perfect opportunity for Kenyans to correct historical injustices from the former regimes. And I believe if we live true to our words, then we are supposed to be genuine in terms of what we present. Secondly, the Constitution provides for freedom of speech and expression, and also right to conscience, especially if you believe that whatever is being proposed is not inconsistent with what majority of the Kenyans want. But the process has been hijacked by politicians, especially those who have self-interest, those who are campaigning for 2022. They are using this as an opportunity to launch their campaigns. And I think Deputy President is just afraid that the opposition, Raila Odinga, is using this process to launch his campaign. And again, what happened in Kitui is very unfortunate. You remember that this is a government initiative. The president is trying to whip everybody to support the BBI. And I remember there was a meeting that was held in Naivasha, which was allied to Deputy President. And they promised that they are giving a schedule on the kind of rallies that they are going to start, especially in Nakuru. But now we were told that they were whipped and told not to carry such kind of rallies. Now, you know, having said that, now the Kuria and others decided now to join, you know, the BBI team. But it's very unfortunate that there was some code of communication that some hired guards were, you know, instructed to mistreat and to intimidate these people who are believed to have divergent views, especially on matters that are unpopular with the people, especially you know, the regional governments, those who are proposing to introduce federal governments. This is a process that has been hijacked by governors who believe that their terms have ended, and they believe that they want another term to serve. Again, Akina Kuria, they are also opposing the idea of expanded executive with the executive prime minister. So I believe that we should not pretend. If we are saying that we are rejecting this document, we need to reject it in totality, or we support it in totality. But as a people, I believe that the Kitui people have realized that they know what they are doing, and they demanded that Kuria be given an opportunity and also to sit somewhere. Because that is the only way we will be able to say that we are building bridges.
You know, maybe before you chip in on to that, Rokin, as you want to make a comment, I would like you also to talk to the Mombasa meeting, because in Mombasa we also saw Murkomen and some other MPs allied to the deputy president. They got to the event. They even were given an opportunity to speak. But now this all changed when they came from Mombasa and again they were seen in Naivasha trying to form their own, parallel meetings, which Mr. Omulo alluded to. And of course the government put its foot down and said no parallel meetings for the BBI.
There is an individual called Robert Greene. Robert Greene wrote a book called The 33 Strategies of War, Concise Strategies of War. And in that book, Greene talks about unconventional warfare or dirty warfare. I think the two camps are actually employing the dirty warfare. And in that book, he says that violence or sporadic violence actually creates power. And it creates a chain reaction sort of strategy to make people follow what you want. And that is what happened in Kitui. Such kinds of violence and sporadic fear to the opponents creates a sense of power. And those ones who oppose you feel like if we don't toe the line, then we are going to be thrown under the bus.
So in this case, who was applying what? Was it Kuria applying the...
Now before I go there, on the dirty or unconventional warfare, the strategy is being applied by all the camps, the Ruto camp and the BBI camp. He talked about the Naivasha meeting. Ruto was applying or sending a coded message, a dirty message, that indeed I have power in parliament. Just imagine 173 members of parliament.
But they defeated that. I mean, there was a press conference that said these guys were merely 78 or 73.
Actually, the report from the meeting, 173 members of parliament, and around 37 sent apologies. Ruto was sending a coded message that we can impeach any minister, we can impeach the president. But I think that one was answered by the side of BBI and the government by impeaching his friend Waititu. That if you try impeachment, we have the numbers, we also impeach you. On the other side,
Omulo doesn't seem to agree with,
but
with your school of thought.
This is politics. And the fact that there were members of parliament who were present in Naivasha, as is alluding to, about 173, it was not evident during the impeachment of Waititu. You saw it in the Senate.
Yes.
If indeed Ruto has numbers, then they ought to have, protected Waititu in the Senate. So it is about politics.
Because the numbers are way above.
Yeah, they went to Naivasha. They went to Naivasha to celebrate, and also maybe, people like this kind of life.
I think for us to avoid the idea that Ruto controls parliament, it will be futile, because why did the BBI not go to parliament? In the first place, they know that the deputy president has a very strong footage in parliament, and that's the truth. 173 members. Do you know what is needed to impeach a minister or even a president? Only a third. In fact, a quarter of the members present in parliament can start a motion through one member to impeach a minister. If the members are supported by a third of the parliament, then the minister can be impeached. That's what Ruto was trying to say, and that's unconventional. And in unconventional warfare, there are 4 things. You start by actually removing the source of the resources or the money. You dry up the resources of the money of your opponent. And this one has been applied even on terrorist groups. You start by drying up their resources. Now, this one started here in Nairobi. You saw some buildings being demolished. You saw some close allies of the deputy president being sacked from government. You saw Songo is at home, Waititu has been impeached.
So you're saying the government is using these unconventional
not just the government
methods,
the BBI brigade is using unconventional and dirty warfare.
I mean, the BBI is, Rokin, let's, I don't know.
No, I've said the unconventional part of the deputy president.
The BBI is not an institution. as per se.
No, what
the BBI does not have any power to do anything.
What are
right
you telling
now.
me, my friend?
They don't make
the
any
president controls instruments of violence.
Then let's say plainly, it's the president or the government that is using.
But again, let us be fair, especially when we argue, because first and foremost, we know the origin of BBI. It came after the handshake.
The handshake, yes.
And they started a process to unite the country. And it would be very unfair to accuse the government or even the president of violence, because I've not seen any police officer harassing elected members, apart from men in black. In fact, they are coordinated goons from the opposition. At the same time, we cannot claim that the reason why BBI was not taken to parliament, because there's a process of holding a referendum under Article 256 and 257. You must, first of all, come up with a bill or a proposal, which, of course, after that, now will go to extent of collecting signatures, which I believe, with the support of the government, it will just be a blink of an eye to get those 1 million signatures. So the process of impeaching a president is very impossible currently, especially when now they are enjoying, comes with Raila Odinga and also other members of parliament. I believe that Ruto will not get that number to impeach the president. So that is just politics, just intimidation.
We are speaking about the Deputy President William Ruto as if he is the leader of opposition. Is he the leader of opposition as things stand right now?
That is what people say, because there's a lot of frustration. Especially, you've seen a situation where the president has barred some members who are allied to Deputy President from attending rallies. You've also seen how some governors are being frustrated. You've seen how Waititu was impeached. And you've seen how even the Gazette notice was printed within a short time.
That's the violence I'm
in
talking
fact,
about.
Actually, I think it was it was gazetted on the same night that he was impeached.
Yes.
And the session, I remember the Senate session, I watched it until the end. It ended at around 9:15 or 9:20.
That is the violence I'm talking about.
How do you interpret violence?
Violence has various meanings. For example, he said that he has not seen police officers harassing elected members. What about Nyoro? What about Kuria? What about the people who are perceived to be supporting William Ruto and who are arrested?
Nyoro is not a police officer.
When they find themselves in the wrong hands of
what I'm trying to say is,
let
me just finish.
Nyoro is not a police officer.
I'm not in fact, I don't support the deputy president politically. I'm just giving my point. Violence in this case might be economic. If you sabotage your opponent economically, you have meted violence on him. And the deputy president has had people, Waititu, even Obado in the first instance was perceived to be supporting the views of the deputy president. That's why some people claim, that's why he was actually, he slept in cells. And today he's actually toiling the lines. So I was trying to say that there are 4 things about dirty warfare that are being applied today. The first one is drying up the resources, whereby the proponents of the DP are actually being sacked, others are being intimidated, and others like Moses Kuria cannot be allowed to step on the dais of the BBI in Kitui. That's number 2. You must occupy the moral high ground. You have seen the BBI brigade claiming that the other side is corrupt. Surely, if Waititu is corrupt, do you solve the problem by replacing him with your friend? You don't. You arrest him and put him in jail.
I mean, I wouldn't want us to go into the details of that, because we know the history of Kiambu. We know that this deputy governor was frustrated from the word go, and record has it that this guy barely attended more than 2 cabinet meetings, and he has had issues. We've had members of parliament from Kiambu County who came out and spoke openly about the corruption so it's not about, I don't think it's about individuals.
It's not about Kiambu alone. I wanted to talk about even Samboja, even Samburu. I wanted to talk about Nairobi. What I'm trying to say is this: if the solution to corruption is not regime change, if you change regime, you are not actually solving the problem, because Waititu is a free man. If you have evidence that Waititu is corrupt, put him in jail. That's what I'm trying to say. So the only thing that trying to do is to dry up the resources that are perceived to be supporting the deputy president. Thirdly, if you actually attack your opponent aggressively, it might draw pity to your opponent as victims. And on this one, Ruto is scoring. He's actually scoring in this case, whereby this violence, I'm talking about the economic violence, even the political violence against Moses Kuria and other people like Didi Njoro. The Ruto Brigade is actually gaining pity from some people who don't understand unconventional warfare. And the fourth and the last thing about unconventional warfare that Robert Greene talks about, which I really support, is you actually recruit people who are seen to be dissidents in your opponent's camp. We have seen Tolgos from the Rift Valley, Kutuny, and other governors from the Rift Valley who were perceived to be friends of the DP, actually endorsing what Baba and Uhuru are saying. And that's what I'm trying to say, that this kind of violence, it has been tried. Look at what the DP has done, not just in Naivasha, but even the things he's talking about in media, how he's actually throwing some passions on the process.
You know, that is
unconventional warfare.
That is just one school of thought, and I don't think it would be fair for us to try and sway all Kenyans to think the same way.
Sure.
You know, people have divergent views, and let me ask this, Bwana Mulo, do you think that the BBI is going to answer the questions to Kenyans' problems? I see Rokin shaking his head. I'll give you a chance to speak your mind, but I would like to hear this from
of course,
Mr. Mulo.
I would say the idea of a BBI is a very good idea. If it will address historical injustices, if indeed it will address economic issues, if indeed it will put a smile on the face of Kenyans by putting food on the table and also money in our pockets, if indeed it will come up with initiatives that will help us address electoral injustices by restructuring IBC. But the moment it has been hijacked by politicians, we believe that the message will not go down well, and Kenyans are not happy about it. And that is the debate that currently it is upon us now to decide if indeed the document is going to, help Kenyans as it's supposed to be. Yes.
You know, my views about that are rather radical. To solve the economic welfare of the people in this country, we don't need the BBI. Did the president need the BBI to tell the people just last weekend, or last week in central Kenya, that rice will be bought at 85 shillings? He didn't. He just went there, gave a presidential directive. Did the president need BBI to help the coffee farmers and tea farmers in central? He didn't. He didn't wait for the BBI. He gave a presidential directive. And things are moving on in central Kenya. Does he need the BBI to help the people in Western and Nyanza region to actually improve their sugarcane farming? He doesn't need the BBI to help the farmers in Nyanza and Western region. So the BBI, to me, is something that is propelled by the elites. It is an elitist agenda that is being positioned or being put forward by individuals who are so keen to prove that they are the ones who hold, or they are the ones who control the opinion and everything in this country. And that one, to me, is very wrong. I have very isolated views about the BBI. I believe that the BBI, on the question of inclusivity, as I've just told you, we don't need the BBI to help people economically, to create jobs. Jubilee promised us 1 million jobs every year. Do we need BBI for the government to create jobs? We don't need the BBI. So I believe the BBI, to me, does not address the question of the common mwananchi. What we need is goodwill from the political class. What we need is goodwill from the president. Let the president come up and give directives to other parts of the country. The question of marginalization, this is what I've just talked about here. Do we need BBI to help people in Sony or in Nyanza to revive their sugar industry? We don't need
Is
BBI.
it, or is it not a reality that Kenya indeed needs reforms when it comes to electoral injustices? And we've seen after every, and this is on record, Rokin, you'll agree with me or disagree, to disagree with me, that we've seen after every general election, we've always had disputes and we've always had violence. Then are these matters that can be put to rest, and how can they be put to rest if you leave out the BBI? What is your way of doing that?
I always talk about institutions. The institution mandated to ensure that elections are free and fair is the IEBC. The IEBC today, I think it has 3 commissioners. We are not discussing about restructuring the IEBC. We are busy talking about 2022 Prime Minister, President, opposition leader. How will we solve the problem if institutions?
To be honest, the BBI is not talking about 2022, according to my understanding. The BBI is talking about changing the system of governance from what we have currently to a parliamentary system of government. I think basically it's making proposals to a change of system, not really for 2022. I mean, unless you want to read it.
And I think, we should not be selective in terms of what proposals the BBI is talking about. There are a lot of good proposals that have been, put in that document. One is the proposal of having 35% of the last audited accounts going to county governments. And also, number 2 is about, shared prosperity, which we believe that there's also a need for involving everyone in governance. And as you've rightly said, that there's also that proposal of changing the structure of government to a parliamentary system, which we believe, as much as we might dispute, is also something that we need to think about, because sometimes we also need inclusion, so that we don't want a situation whereby people make a lot of noise outside here. But again, having said that, the process itself, there are parts that will be passed through constitutional amendments. There are also parts that needs a referendum, which is a discussion, is a national discourse, which we believe is somehow good. And we also need to come up with it's also proposing how we'll be able to manage our debts. So these are some of the proposals that we need to push. We cannot say, have a pedestrian view that the whole process does not need such kind of proposal, because the president has executive powers to do some few things. The president has powers, as he said, even to create jobs and so many things. But he cannot do that if indeed, we have achieved so much in terms of devolution. But there's also a belief that the current budget that is given to county government is going towards a recurrent expenditure. It is not helping in development. In fact, a small percentage is going towards development. It will only be fair if we increase that budget to county government. And also we enhance and develop on how we run devolution. So it's a good process which we support, but what we oppose is that the fact of that politicians are talking about creating regional governments, which will duplicate the roles of county government, and also which will burden Kenyans who are paying taxes. Yes.
Sure. And also there's also been an issue. I think maybe I would like you gentlemen also to start on this, because when they talk about the expansion of the executive, clearly some people interpret this as, creating jobs for so and so and so and so. It's like they know already who these jobs are being created for. What does this mean? The expansion of the executive.
Yes. The only dangerous thing Kenyans are used to doing is to assume some things. Let me try to debunk the idea that politicians are actually doing good to this country. A politician is about his interest. So if you tell me that these politicians are actually here to tell us what will help this country in the next generation, that is a good lie. It is good to listen to and hear. But actually, they are the same people who formed this constitution in 2010. At that time, this constitution was heaven. Has the heaven changed? That's the question.
When they passed the document, they said
yes,
some percentage of the document is not clear, and we'll
he has
come
talked
back
about
and make some
he has
amendments.
talked about money is going to the counties. Do we need a BBI? Do we need BBI? What is the role of members of parliament on the question of devolved units? The members of parliament can debate and increase money to 45%. We don't need BBI to solve that. That's the truth.
So your take is?
My take is expanding the executive is the main agenda. The other things are cosmetics. The main agenda is to form, to ensure that we have a three-tier government. Even before 2017 election, we had Baba talk about a referendum and a three-tier government. The same agenda is being put forward in the BBI. That's the truth. So it is not about the people. It is about including the losers, in rewarding those ones who have lost in elections, and rewarding the governors who are on their way out to actually hold another position. We have had people talk about regional governments, others are talking about removing the term limits of governors, and that is the main agenda of BBI. That's why I believe the solution of this country does not end with the BBI. It ends with our attitude.
Gentlemen,
it ends with the institutions. That's why I talked about institutions.
Let me throw in something here. Do you think that term limits actually determine whether a leader does a good job or not?
No. It will be very hard to determine using the term limits, because it is upon the the agenda of the current government, which we believe if you have competent people will be able to deliver, especially in the current government, the Big Four agenda. You've seen that recently the president was complaining that I trusted some people to launch these projects, but they are doing nothing. They're doing politics.
They're doing
and that's why the president is becoming tough nowadays, because he has realized that with the current situation, he'll not be able to achieve or maybe leave legacy in regards to development records. But I believe, the parliamentary system or creation of expanded executive is a good idea, because a common Kenyan like me will get an opportunity for one day to become a prime minister or even a deputy prime minister. If you have a president who is elected by the people and with the current dynasty, it will be very hard for a common person. But if it is appointed or if it goes through parliament, then you become a member of parliament. It will be very easy for you to become a prime minister. At the same time, with the current of, it will also encourage the minority, those who come from, small clans, to also be able to participate in governance. Because you look at the dynamics of Kenyan politics, it is only 3 communities that are controlling politics in this country. So the creation of the expanded executive somehow will also give the minority clans also to get their share on the table. But again, there are a lot of proposals, especially the 7-year term limit, which has been pushed in this document, which we believe that we don't want the election cycle to continue after every 5 years. We want a president who can be elected after 7 years, and now you can go home. Then we have another election, so that we strengthen the performance of the government and also increase on the delivery. So I believe that it is a good idea, and it's going to be unstoppable. The reason why I'm saying that is that this is a government initiative. And now people have been saying that the elitists or the dynasty are also creating this position for a certain individual. Of course, there are people who have come out clearly and saying that the president is too young. They want the president to become the prime minister, because according to the constitution, it does not allow the president now to become another or campaign to become a president. So I believe in whichever way this BBI thing is meant to create unity tranquility, and peace in this country, because that is, the sole responsibility of BBI.
I'd like to get your opinion on the same also. The term limit, does it determine whether or not a leader performs? I'll give you an example of countries. Let's just take randomly. Let's go to Germany. The Chancellor, Angela Merkel, how many times has she, went back to the ballot, and for how long has she been in power? She's doing her job.
The only problem with Africa, as you talk about Angela, we have had Mugabes in Africa. We have had people who have retained power in Africa. But look at their countries. It is not about term limits. USA, the president goes for 4 years terms, and then 4 years. For us, we have been 10 years for president. What has changed? If you go to, we are going for a parliamentary system. Ethiopia is a parliamentary system.
Yes.
If you look at the DRC Congo, it is a parliamentary system since the
not quite
Patrice
a very good
Lumumba's,
example to
during the Patrice Lumumba's time. South Africa is somehow a parliamentary system. But these countries also have some problems. In fact, in South Africa, we just talked about xenophobia the other day. We are talking about jobs, we are talking about poverty,
and
just
education.
like in Kenya. So a parliamentary system is not heaven. Let us not package this BBI and a parliamentary system as heaven, whereby our people are going to be salvaged or saved. No. It is about the people. It is about the leaders who are actually lying to Kenyans, who are dishonest. Because Rwanda is using our constitution. Are you aware? But look at Rwanda. Rwanda is developing. My friend,
at a very
it
fast
is
rate. I think the
developing.
fastest
The
developing
industries
country
is
in Africa.
developing in terms of infrastructure. In fact, foreign direct investments have increased in Rwanda. Why? Because the leadership is honest. Their attitude towards resources is about the people. And the law is very clear on matters of corruption, on matters of handling everything in the country. This constitution, was the best. That's why even the people who framed this constitution went to Botswana, and 3/4. In fact, Kenyans are the ones helping Botswana run their country. Look at Botswana today. It is developing. And there are no high corruption cases. In fact, on the question of poverty, they have really reduced poverty levels in Botswana. What about Kenya? I'm not actually a pessimist. I believe that Kenya, we can do better.
But then would you be honest if we would want to compare a country like Kenya and Botswana? I mean, we know the kind of resources, we know the population in Botswana. I mean, really, can we really take Botswana as a benchmark for Kenya?
Why should we not compare? All of us are countries.
But again, Timothy, look at a case in Rwanda. After the genocide, they decided to work together. They decided to have a national reconciliation, and they came up with laws that will enhance development and that will put the country together. That is what we are facing as Kenyans. We are not together. You cannot bring development when some people feel suppressed, when some people feel that we are not part of the government. That has been the logic in this country. If you give this example to other countries, like Tanzania, there are so many tribes in Tanzania. But because of the foundation, the leadership that came with Julius Nyerere, they were able now to speak one language, that is Kiswahili. That is what we are trying to address. If we are able to address, perfectly historical injustices, if we are able to address electoral injustices, where the person who is going to lose election will come out clearly and accept peacefully that indeed I was in the ballot, but I've accepted, and the country can now move on. So those are such kind of things that we need, and we need serious leadership. We don't need people who just talk, but they do not act. And delivery and personality, as you said, which I support, is about the leadership. It's not about the term limit. It's about a person who will be focused on service to humanity. And that person can only be compared to a person like Musalia Mudavadi, who is very peaceful, who is very neutral, and is a person who is in love with Kenya.
But he also got some backlash on his, 360-degree turn on his view for the BBI.
No, sometimes in this country, you don't sit on the fence. But I believe what you're talking about, people are saying that because he decided to go to Buhungu Stadium, that is his bedroom. Sometimes you don't allow people to invade your bedroom, and then you run away. You face them. And that's what he did. He faced them. So it's not about turning 360 degrees. He's also been consistent on matters of economy, on matters of debt ceiling and how to manage debts in this country. So those are some of the things that we need a leader who will come out clearly, and we are seeing that now with the president, who is now firm on leaders who are just doing politics. But what we don't like is how the politicians are now running away with BBI, how the former prime minister is now using this to unveil his political ambition come 2022. It will only be fair to involve other leaders so that people can speak in one voice. They should also be allowed to give their divergent views so that we have a consolidated document now that will give us a way forward and a roadmap that now will enhance development in this country.
Which is a very good suggestion, but then our politicians seem to have forgotten about that, and they're really not keen in doing that. They're busy politicking. As we conclude, I'd like to just get your final remarks, because for interest of time, and I'd really love us to have this discussion much more. And like I mentioned, of course, before the show, it's really high time that Kenyans need to discuss the content of the document, make comparison, make suggestions, maybe parallel or whatever, but shy away from just politicking about the whole process and talk about the issues. Give examples, compare notes, and let Kenyans decide what they want. But as we conclude, Rokin, I'd like to get your final views on the same. On the BBI, do you think that the BBI will solve the problems of Kenyans?
If the Constitution 2010 has not solved those problems, it will not. Because this was the most elaborate yes. document that yes. could have solved this country and everything to do with marginalization. And to debunk the notion about BBI and everything is that it is an elitist argument which has actually left out the common mwananchi. As you are saying that people are playing politics, it has been hijacked by politicians, and we cannot run away from that. That one will go on. The politics of the day will carry. In fact, it will win. That's why I believe the BBI cannot solve the problems. What can only solve our problems is the attitude of the leaders, not just the current Raila or Uhuru or Ruto. Even for posterity, leaders will come in if they have an attitude of helping the people and working for the people. That's the only time we will actually solve the problems affecting this country.
Thank you, Rokin. Omulo, your final comments on the same?
I think the Constitution has, to some extent, solved our problems through devolution. As much as we've seen some challenges, we need just to improve on it. We believe that BBI is there, and it can solve Kenya's problem if indeed it will address the economy, if indeed it will address historical injustices, electoral injustices, and fundamental issues that are affecting Kenyans. And we're asking, the people who are driving BBI, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, to have another handshake with the Ruto, so that we let everybody be involved in this BBI, so that we see that unity that we are talking about. Again, we also want to request the BBI Secretariat to print more copies, because now we will need to go to Mashinani. Let us have discussions. Let the people own it. We want now the Mwananchi to own it. And we need to work closely with the Secretariat so that as we give our views, we give it from the point of information, because that is very necessary, so that we stop. Let us leave politicians alone, let them do their politics, but at the grassroots level, let us form committees, let us have, through county commissioners, even the media, we can now start conversations so that we tell people what is in that document and what is in it for them, and they can also be given an opportunity to give their views. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, viewer, we have come to the end of this segment, and if you're listening to our panelists, quite divergent views, but then what we agree on is that Kenyans need discourse. Kenya needs to sit down and talk about their problems openly and honestly. Rokin here does not believe for even a single minute that the BBI can solve the problems of Kenyans if the 2010 constitution did not solve these problems. However, Mr. Omulo is optimistic and says, I mean, if we go according to the letter of the BBI, then we are seeing good things to come for Kenyans. Well, I don't know about you. For comments, suggestions, or opinion, you can send that to our SMS line to 1144. You can also drop us an email on info@gbskenya.com. Let's keep the conversation going through our hashtag. That's GBS Morning Extra. My name is Timothy Omondi. Do have yourself a lovely day, and I'm now paving way for my colleague, Kevin Nyariki, who will be coming up with the Sports Extra. For me, it's bye-bye for now.